Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode 40 of Be With Me in the book of Romans. Today we're going to talk about election. And before your eyes glaze over, let me define it for you. Election is God saying, quote, "Hey, I've been thinking about you." Or maybe, "Hey, I am for you." So we're in a passage in Romans chapter 8. And we just got done with verse 28. Let me just read and get started. "And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. For those whom he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, in order that he might be the firstborn among many brothers. And those whom he predestined, he called. And those whom he called, he justified. And those whom he justified, he glorified. What shall we say then if God is for us?" Which is kind of the big summary. All right. But first let's talk about foreknowledge. For those he foreknew. Of course God knows beforehand. It's called his omniscience. It's really one of his primary characteristics. And I don't think anybody really has too many complaints about God's omniscience. And if not, how would all these prophecies be fulfilled? How would we know about a new heavens and a new earth that's going to come down? How would we know about the tribulation that's to come? He's been in the business of foreknowing things and fulfilling prophecy. How would he know that, Jesus was born in Bethlehem and all the other hundreds and hundreds of prophecies in Scripture? So let's move on from there, because I don't think a lot of people have any problems with "for those he foreknew." So let's get into this. He predestined to be conformed. So God is doing something with regards to salvation. He's doing it before we get saved, on the day we get saved, and the days after. So there's this before, during, and after. So he's calling us before. On the day, he's moving spiritual furniture around and justifying us. And then afterwards, he's going to conform us to his Son and glorify us as he makes us look like God. So he predestined us to be conformed. So my first thought is that he better, because all have sinned. We've gone through 7 chapters of frustration and failure and 100% failure rate without him. So he better be predestining us and have a participation in this activity. He has to say, "Hey guys, I've been thinking about you, and I've got you, and I've had my eye on you for, let me think, forever." And that he's been working sovereignly to help us. So, yes, Lord, please conform me. Finish this work that you started, eons ago. And may my heart be like Christ. May it be gentle and lowly. Let me follow you. Let me follow the firstborn and be like you. Let me look a lot like love. That is like you. And then let me have the right attitude, and that is, let me love you for this thing that I see you doing in me. All right, so back to election. Election is that God has been thinking about me, that God has been on purpose, that God has been groaning and helping on the day of salvation and in the days afterwards. It's that God's saying, "I am at work in you and for you. I'm in you. I predestined, and I'll be in work with you forever for your conformity, for your future, and that heads towards glory." So God is saying, "I've been doing a few things for you." So on your day of salvation, you have to move some spiritual stuff around. That's called justification. It's God saying, "I am for you. I've been for you. I am for you now, and I will be for you in the future." So I've done some spiritual, powerful actions for you, sacrificing and payment and debt payment and justification. So let me talk about reactions to this doctrine of election, which sounds so ominous. The proper the response is not complaint. It's that, oh my goodness, he better elect. He better foreknow. He better predestine. He better conform. We need help in this. We've already had 7 chapters of frustration leading to 724 is, wretched man that I am, who will save me from this body of death? And you'll have 1,000 pages of the Old Testament kind of leading to you to the same thing. So the proper response to election is not complaint. It's, I want a God who is active. I want a God who is on purpose. I want a God who is groaning for me, who's bigger than my understanding, who's helping me on the day of salvation move this spiritual stuff around, who's helping me on the days after salvation, my sanctification. I love a God I love it that God has been thinking about me all along before. I was thinking about the day of my salvation. I was in the living room of Jim Wilson's house, and there's nobody that was more surprised than myself. I was totally surprised at the day of my salvation. Now, guess who was not surprised on the day of my salvation? God. He'd been thinking about it for a long time. He'd been working on it. And then on that day, he moves the spiritual stuff. And then since that day. So God's not surprised. So here's the response to election is, I love you, God, for thinking about me. I love you, God, for being at work in justifying me. I love that you are for me for a long time. I love that you have committed yourself to me. I love you that you've committed to the conforming process all the way to glory, all the way to the future. Remember that the heart of election is love. It's God thinking about me. It's God being for me. So the language of God's love is election. And our response, my response, is I don't want to bristle and complain. I want to love you for it. Lord, I love you for your foreknowledge and your predestination and your conforming me to your Son and your calling of me before and you're justifying me on the day of salvation and you're leading me all the way to glory. I love you for it. The language of God's love is election. Let's love him for it. Thank you for listening.